You guys asked for it, so here it is, breaking down an entire chuck roll from this point of view. This one's 27 pounds. One of the biggest critiques I got on my last video was to use a smaller boning knife when doing some of the finer trimming work. So added this to the collection, and we're gonna take that advice. So excited about that. And then of course I still have my trusty 10-inch breaking knife as well for doing the actual cuts. So just like we talked about last time, you want to have more cookie sheets than you think you need because you're just going to want places to put stuff. Let's get into it. So the first thing I always do is just trim a little bit off the ends so it's easier to see what we're working with. So with these end cuts, I just start my burger meat pile. Lots of comments on the last video. People said, if I don't want burger meat, can I use that for stew meat? The answer is absolutely yes, you can. Whatever you want to use it for, that's the beauty of cutting your own meat. So see, now we can see what we're working with. So the first thing is we're gonna go for the natural separation on this top flap right here. So we wanna look for where it naturally separates from the bottom piece. See how I can stick my fingers in there? So that is a natural separation, okay? I'm gonna take the butcher's advice and switch to our boning knife here. And see how I'm not cutting meat here. This naturally pulls apart and I'm just using the knife to separate it where the fat and the silver skin are holding it together. So you can see how that's a natural layer there all the way through. There we go. So now we're going to set this aside, work on our top half. Look at the difference between these two ends. You can see that, and you can see that. Well, which one looks like a ribeye, right? That one. This part of the chuck roll is where the rib stops and the chuck starts. So these are actually baby ribeyes. It's called the chuckeye steak, and it is one of the best cuts that you'll get out of this chuck roll. So we're just gonna cut chuckeye steaks here until it turns just into roast. And you can cut them as thick as you want. I like mine around there. You see that? It looks like a ribeye steak. Chuckeye number 2. Chuckeye number 3. Chuckeye number 4. And what's left here is your pot roast. And if you're by yourself or you have a smaller family, you can cut that in half. We have a bigger family. I joked in the last video, it's like we have 17 kids. We really have 4 kids. But when it comes to the grocery bill, sometimes it feels like 17. On the last one I did, this wasn't the case. But on this one, you can see there's connective tissue here. This is where the rib bones were. This is kind of like skin. I like to trim that off when I encounter it. So just kind of peel it back and release it off there like that. I would not recommend putting this in your burger pile. And the rest of that though, beautiful roast. We've got our roast. We got 4 chuck eyes out of that one. Now let's get back to this piece. So the next thing we're looking for is called the Sierra steak. And the way you're gonna know it, you see the grain of this meat, it's running this way. Well, the Sierra steak is gonna run long ways. And what we're gonna do here is we're gonna do a ton of trimming. We're gonna trim, see this bright shiny stuff? This is called silver skin. You don't want that in your burger meat, right? The fat, like this, can go. That definitely you want in your burger meat. So we're just gonna clean this up, and as we clean it up, you're gonna see the grain of the Sierra steak emerge. You can already see a piece of it right here. If you haven't seen it before, think of like fajita meat. That's what we usually use our Sierra steak for, is making fajitas. And all the meat and fat that you trim off, put in your burger pile. So you're seeing the Sierra steak here, right? See all this meat that's running long ways. So you can kind of see the outline of it. It goes about to here. So you're gonna look for the natural separation again. Now, a lot of times these cuts will have a fat cap on the front side here, holding it all together. So it's gonna be hard to find where the natural separation is unless you cut that off. So let's continue that around. So now we can see where that Sierra steak separates from the rest of the meat. Right around here. Again, we're just following that natural separation all the way through. So if you cut the whole chuck roll up into steaks like a lot of other carnivore creators do, that's okay, but you miss this awesome cut of meat. All right, so now let's clean this thing up. Cut all the silver skin off. There's our Sierra steak. It makes great fajitas. So this piece that's usually left over is all extra. So you can go ahead and turn that into burger meat. So we're down to our last section. So far, our order was we took the top flap off. That contained our chuckeye steaks and our pot roast. Then right underneath that, we uncovered our Sierra steak. And then we trimmed this part up. So now what we're gonna get down to is our Denver steaks. And then the rest of it will be stew burger meat. We're gonna start trimming fat and silver skin off of this piece, and I'll show you what we're looking for. So for those of you wondering, this is only the 4th time I've ever done this. So this is not something that you have to be some kind of professional to do. Just have to take your time, learn where the cuts are, and you get a little better each time. There we go. So this is what we're looking for. We're looking for this fan shape in these fat veins, right? So it originates from a corner right here, and then it fans out like this. So once you have all of that stuff trimmed off the top, you can see that easily. So you just keep trimming fat and silver skin and excess pieces of meat until you have this fan. Now what we're gonna do is the corner where the fan starts. So right here, this is where we're gonna start cutting Denver steaks, okay? And we're just gonna go until it kind of starts to fall apart and it's not really a marbled steak anymore. And then what's left over is just gonna be stew and burger meat. Pro tip, flip this over, and sometimes there's some skin here on the back side. So before we start cutting Denver steaks, let's just cut all of this off so that we don't have to cut it off of each individual steak once we slice them. Now we don't have to do any trimming on the steaks themselves. So we'll start cutting Denver steaks right here. Again, you can control your thickness. I would not recommend cutting them more than 1 inch because these can be a little tough if you don't cook them right. Denver, 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 Denver. And this is how you know when you're getting close to the end of the Denver. See how it's kind of starting to fall apart right there? Like this up here is all kind of together, but then you got this going on. Now you got more of it. See? So I think that's probably our last Denver. And then I'll cut these in half. Again, beautiful thing about cutting your own meat is you can decide what size you want your steaks. All right, and then the rest of this is burger meat or stew meat, whatever you prefer. There you have it. We've broken down an entire chuck roll once again. All this meat, Dad's Ranch is going to make it even better.